What's up, guys? I'm Chad Barnes, and welcome to the channel. Here, it's all about real car talk, from simple fixes to smart driving tips and keeping your ride in top shape. If that sounds good to you, go ahead and give the video a thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button, and make sure you watch all the way through. There's a lot of good stuff coming. Let's get to it.
In general, the question why, in the case of Kia, could be answered just because they could. Korean sales were going well, all key market segments were occupied, so expansion within the segment was not the most obvious, but an acceptable decision. Moreover, the model development costs were moderate due to the use of off-the-shelf solutions. Kia Venga, which debuted in 2009, received the familiar PB platform on which the Soul and the ultra-popular Solaris were built. It took 2 years for the compact van to reach Russia. It premiered here only in 2011. The debut of the novelty was quiet, however, the car did not claim to be a bestseller, so that sales of several thousand cars a year generally corresponded to logic. And the localization at of Toyota, established later, did not influence the demand too much. Besides, Koreans did not start dumping. Prices for the novelty were even higher than those of competitors, 600,000 for the basic version and almost 750,000 for the top version. It was possible to buy Soul for approximately the same money, but the audience was formally divided. Soul was addressed to fashionable people, and Venga, with wheelbase increased by 5 centimeters, was addressed to households. Practice will show that Soul will survive, and Venga will not, but it will take a few more years. By the restyling of 2014, Venga became the leader of the segment, but not because the sales skyrocketed, but because the segment is practically extinct. Only Frenchmen are left in it. Besides, at the time of restyling, prices jumped up, and the basic Venga cost almost 800,000 and the most packed more than 900,000. In general, it is not surprising that the Korean microvan also quietly left the market a year later. But it does not mean that it is not worth paying attention to it today. Let's break down what the Venga is made of and whether it's hard to choose a used copy. The age of the cars allows us to talk about the good condition of the body of most of them. Of course, Venga cannot be called a model of paint quality. Minor problems like spot swelling of paintwork on the luggage door and rust on the front edge of the ungalvanized roof upset the owners already in the first years. The massive front bumper collects chips and rubs the fender edges when carelessly installed after removal. The fenders themselves collect chips on the lower edges, and the sills are peeling in the sandblast zone behind the front wheels. Wheel arch recesses should be inspected carefully. Corrosion slowly but surely develops under the lockers and in hidden cavities. Defects on the sills and bumper bottoms are not uncommon due to the small clearance. Sometimes paint swelling can be found around the door handles. One of the Venga's impressive options was a panoramic roof, so if it's available it's worth inspecting the roof itself for integrity, as well as checking that the drains are clean and the interior is dry. In general, however, unbeaten cars retain their exterior appearance quite well. In terms of body repairs, Venga is largely helped by its Korean origin. The car, remaining a niche car, is almost ignored by manufacturers of body parts, but the original often costs relatively moderate money. For example, a new front fender can be bought for 12,000, not cheap, but tolerable, especially since there are no alternatives. The hood costs 30,000 and the presence of non-original does not save. They ask about the same money for it. The original front bumper can be bought for 18 to 20,000, also acceptable if you do not count numerous moldings and grills. For larger parts they ask appreciably more. For example, the trunk lid will cost 50,000. But the windshield can be bought non-original for cheap, from 8,000, and with heating from 10 to 12, which is half less than branded. Optics also will not ruin. The original headlight costs 20 to 23,000 and the analog 12, although there are Magneti Marelli for the same 20,000. In general, it is possible to eliminate the consequences of a small accident even without resorting to dismantling, but in general, it is worth counting on them, especially on foreign ones, because we rarely have cars. Venga suspension schemes are predictable, McPherson in front and a torsion beam at the rear. However, the unity of the PB platform with Solaris and Soul does not mean full unification of spare parts. Much here is conditionally own, although there are still non-original options. For example, unique front levers can be bought for 2 to 7,000 at the price of the original in 8 to 10,000. Front ball bearing for repressing is frankly cheap, 800 rubles for the original and from 300 for substitutes. And of course, there are individual silent blocks from 150 rubles. Stabilizer struts are also formally owned, so the choice is narrower, but still there, from 500 rubles for analogs and 2000 for the original. The front shock absorber in a firm box costs 7,000 and the rear 4 substitutes start from 1.5 to 3,000, but for details from well-known manufacturers will still have to give 4 to 5,000. Silent blocks of the rear beam are traditionally cheap. If you are embarrassed by the original 2000, you can buy a substitute from 600 rubles. Stupor bearings in front are changed separately and are cheap, 5,000 for the original and from 600 rubles for analogs. But at the back it is necessary to change a hub in assembly, and it is already minimum 4,000, and a firm and it all will cost in 7. However, as a whole, Venga cannot be called expensive in maintenance of the automobile. All problems are solvable, and at presence of problems with a running gear it is possible simply to bargain the sum for repair. Brakes of the microvan got predictably simple, but sufficient. They are disc single piston mechanisms with a floating bracket on a circle and diameter of front discs 280 mm as at seat, and unventilated rear 258 mm. Expendables are also cheap here. The original brake disc, both front and rear, costs 4,000 and non-original, from 1-1, 5,000. Pads can be bought for less than 1,000 rubles. Parking brake, with the usual mechanical drive, so if the cables are not sour, the trunk lines are not damaged and the vacuum booster is good, you can go to the inspection of steering. It is here with electric power steering and in general is quite reliable. The mechanical rack can be bought cheap, even the original costs 30,000 and the restored unit in an assembly is 15 to 25. But the amplifier, located on the steering column, cannot be bought separately, only in assembly with the column for a 6-figure sum. So in case of malfunction here, in any case it will be necessary to start with repair, and it is not worth to forgive the amplifier. Jerks and snags at test drive. Venga was offered with both manual and automatic transmissions. The main good news here is that all of them are perfectly familiar to us from other models of the concern. For example, not only the Kia Soul but also Hyundai Solaris. The basic was a 5-speed manual M5 CF1, and diesel and 1.6-liter gasoline cars could be equipped with a 6-speed gearbox M6 CF1. Usually, the 6-speed is called stronger as it is designed for more torque, but the 5-speed manual is quite a decent unit. With Venga motors on 90 and 125 horsepower copes and junior box, so if to change oil at least once in 50,000 kilometers, the box will pass more than 250,000. During inspection, attention should be paid to typical problems: oil leaks, its level and condition, vibrations and noises of bearings, as well as the work of synchronizers. The automatic was the companion of only the older 1.6-liter motor. And before restyling it was a 4-speed A4 CF1, and since 2014 it was replaced by a 6-speed A6 GF1. Both boxes have been known for a long time and are quite good. 4-speed does not please revs on the highway and consumption in the city, but it is simpler and a little less sensitive to oil cleanliness. 6-speed in the first years could bother with childish diseases, but Venga received it only in 2015, so the issues by that time have already been eliminated. In general, both boxes on condition of oil change once in the same 50,000 kilometers can pass 200 to 250,000 or even more. But the 6-speed contaminates it more actively with products of wear of the torque converter locking pads. Taking into account that we are talking about automatic transmission for Solaris and Rio, they have been mastered in repair long ago. And in extreme case you can just buy a box on the dismantling. The motors here are also similar to the Rio. The basic variant is 1.4-liter G4FA, which on Venga produces only 90 horsepower against 107 in Rio, and the older was 1.6-liter G4FC with 125 horsepower. Everything is known about them for a long time. They are quite good motors with chain timing, cast iron liners in an aluminum block, and simple distributed injection. Not the highest resource of timing in 100 to 120,000 kilometers is compensated by low cost of its replacement. Phaser regulator on the inlet may require replacement after 100,000, but it is not very expensive either. The only thing that could spoil the potential resource, the catalytic converter, ceramic chromes from which got into the cylinders. But now the catalytic converter on most cars has been either removed or replaced. However, it is still worth including cylinder endoscopy in the list of diagnostic works. If to summarize everything that we have found out, Venga looks like a good variant of a family car, power units from mass Kia Rio. Simple and inexpensive in maintenance suspension, as well as spacious interior and good equipment. Small difficulties with body repair, of course, are possible, but solvable. So it remains only to find a good copy. Taking into account our budget, the most logical choice will be a car with 1.6-liter engine and automatic, the minimum number of owners. And mileage up to 100,000 kilometers, approximately like this, and if Autoteca will confirm accident-free history and mileage, and diagnostics will not reveal problems with the engine and gearbox, then Venga can be driven for several more years without serious investments. And from a family, compact van usually do not demand more. In conclusion, the Kia Venga offers a practical blend of functionality and affordability, making it a compelling choice for those seeking a reliable vehicle without the frills. Priced at 850,000 rubles, it stands out for its spacious interior and efficient use of space, catering well to families or individuals needing extra room. While its design may not turn heads, the Venga excels in delivering value for money, especially for buyers prioritizing utility over style. Ultimately, if you value practicality and comfort in your daily drive, the Kia Venga is certainly worth considering.